Hi everybody, my name is Jens Larsen. In this video I'm going to show you some longer melodic ideas or licks that are based on using arpeggios. I'm going to do this on the first part of a minor blues, but of course it will work as well if you're using it in sort of a modal minor situation. And I'm going to use some different scale sounds that you normally associate with a minor blues, and also a few that are maybe a little bit less common. I'm going to focus on using the arpeggios to sort of really get the sound of the scale across, and I'm going to use the diatonic arpeggios, but I'm also going to use some of the other arpeggios that you can take out of a scale, like Quartal Harmony and Shell Voicings. The nature of these arpeggios also really helps with creating some interesting odd note groupings, so you can take that away from this video as well. And of course you also get an overview of the more common scale choices ranging to the more exotic or outside scale choices for a minor chord. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar, improve the way that you solo, check out some interesting arpeggios or chord voicings, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. The most common tonic minor sound in jazz is probably melodic minor. It's even sometimes referred to as jazz minor because in jazz we don't use different scales, ascending and descending, for melodic minor, but also I think mostly we just call it melodic minor anyway, and we don't really care about how the classical guys use it. They can figure that out by themselves. The way that you want to understand this lick, well, actually there are two ways you can interpret it, because you can look at it as being a variation based on just one single triad, which is the augmented triad. And another way of looking at it is that it's actually three individual chords that are being arpeggiated in a sort of cascading way. So if we take that interpretation first, we get this, and that's an E flat major 7 sharp 5 arpeggio. Notice that I'm playing this using first downstroke on the D and then upstrokes on the rest, and that's actually the pattern that I'm using in my right hand for the first part of this lick for all the arpeggios. So, and then the next string will be, and this arpeggio is not strictly a diatonic arpeggio in C melodic minor. If you look at it like this, then it's a B7 sharp 5, and then the next one is a G7 sharp 5. So we have, and then I'm just finishing the line by just hitting, well, basically the color notes in melodic minor, which would be the major 6 and the major 7, then the third, and ending on the 9 of C minor. The other sound that's most commonly used on the minor chords in jazz would be the Dorian sound. I think the chord voicing you would associate with that would be some sort of minor 13, so in this case a C minor 13 would be this. And where we have the C minor 7, so the flat 7 and the flat 3, and then the 13 or the major 6 on top of that. And that's what I'm using here. So the first part of the line is just a chromatic enclosure, targeting the third, so the E flat. And then on the third beat I have first the E flat major 7. I'm playing this as a shell voicing arpeggio, so I'm playing E flat, G and D. So I have actually turned the diatonic 7th chord into a 3-note arpeggio instead, which is a nice way to create something that just moves on top of the beat and that allows me to get some more colors, but also really add a rhythmical element to the line. And that's also continued because first I have the E flat major 7, then a G minor 7, and then a B flat major 7. And here we also have sort of the emphasis on the 13 in the chord. So we have just the shell voicings moving up through the scale in diatonic thirds, so E flat to G to B flat. And then I'm just ending it with another E flat shell voicing arpeggio, and then again ending on the high 9 here on the C minor. The idea behind the arpeggios used in this line is something that harmonic minor does extremely well, because it has that flat 6 in there, because I'm using diminished triads alternating with tonic minor, so C minor triads. So the first part is just the diminished triad from D down to A flat, then a descending C minor triad. Notice that when I'm playing this also, I'm again using first downstroke and then 2 upstrokes, just to make it easier to pick. And then moving up, another diminished triad, so from F down to B, and then a descending C minor root position, and then skipping back up to the 5th to the G, and then just a scale run down to the D. Quartal harmony and quartal arpeggios are probably mostly associated with modal jazz and especially with the Dorian sound like I'm using it here. But of course you also want to check that out for melodic minor and harmonic minor and use it in other contexts, because it's also just a great melody if you want to use it in your lines, or a great chord voicing while you're comping. The first part of this line is just a really basic C minor pattern, so I'm starting on the 5th, then skipping down to the 3rd and then down the scale. Then I'm going up and playing an E flat major 7, arpeggio just starting on the 7th, and then I move into the quartal harmony, the quartal arpeggios starting from G, and it's really just moving up the scale, so G, C, F, A, D, G, and then B flat, E flat and A. And here with the last one, so with quartal arpeggios and quartal voicings you can't really name them. It doesn't really make too much sense if you want to relate it to any kind of chord that you're working with, because you can use them for a lot of different chords and they're very often a little bit ambiguous and incomplete. But in this case I'm actually ending on the voicing that I would say, if you play it as a chord, then this is actually a C minor 13. So in that way I'm really spelling out the Dorian C minor 13 sound. The reason that I can keep on publishing videos every week is that I have a community of people over on Patreon that are supporting the channel. I'm very grateful for their support, and that's really what makes it possible for me to keep on making all these very specific jazz and jazz guitar videos. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page, and if you join us over on Patreon, I can also give you something in return for your support. This example is a lot more outside and doesn't actually fit with a normal C minor tonic minor chord, mainly because it doesn't actually have a 5th in the scale. But you can still work with it and it will still work as a sort of variation or something that you can throw in there when you're improvising. It's a great sound. It's using the diminished scale. The idea is kind of that we're taking the melodic minor sound, so, and then the 5th is being split. So now instead of having the G, I'm gonna add the F sharp or G flat and then the A flat. And then I have this scale. And that's a diminished C diminished scale. So I'm using material out of the C diminished scale. And I'm using quartal harmony out of the C diminished scale, because there's one quartal structure that works really well out of that scale, and that's this one, which is sort of similar to like the top of a dominant with a 13 or dominant sharp 9 sound, and I'm moving that around. In this example I'm using that I can turn the quartal arpeggio, which is a 3-note arpeggio, into a 5-note grouping by playing the arpeggio first as 4 notes, so really emphasizing the melody, and then adding a note. So now I have 4 notes and then one more, that's 5 notes. So I have a 5-note grouping that's sort of shifting nicely across the 4/4 meter. The first part of the line is just really a scale run in well, either the diminished scale or the melodic minor scale, so starting on the D and then down to the B and then up the scale. And then I get into the quartal harmony idea, so the quartal arpeggios. So first this idea, and of course the diminished scale is a symmetrical scale, and we don't really expect to hear a symmetrical scale on this tonic minor chord. So using that here works really well, and it doesn't get too predictable too easily, especially if you don't do it too much. So this, and then I'm moving it up a minor third and doing the same thing, exactly the same thing. So, and then finally resolving, and here I'm using this quartal harmony this chord arpeggio is in fact the top part of a C minor 6. So I'm kind of resolving back into a C minor melodic sound playing this last pattern. And that means that I have this sort of diminished sound sort of shifting and then immediately resolving back into the C melodic minor sound, which is an easy, pretty smooth way to use this idea. If you want to check out some more ideas and some more material on what you can use on a modal minor chord, then maybe check out this video where I'm also really focusing on the modal aspect of it. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and it's the first time you see one of my videos, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. And that's about it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.